Welcome to Friday at 10:02. Can't really read it. Looks like it. More or less 10. So it's time for relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons, where no painting will occur, but there will be a bunch of filing and sanding and test fitting. The deck, the circular deck of the USS Enterprise original series, the TOS. Yep, I'm building this, and because I wanted to build something that wasn't terribly challenging. I mean, it's going to be interesting, but not terribly challenging. It's going to end up kind of looking like this. It'll be a circle with all these little panels all around it. And there's decals that go on all of these panels that make them look, Star Trek-y. And this is the top view. So it's it'll be a circle about this big, I guess. I'll find out after I test fit this stuff. So what's happening today is I took these parts, all of these parts off of the sprue, little trees that they're on when they are injection molded. And now I am, you can see the little bits of sprue that are left there. I am filing those down and then sanding them down and sanding all around the edges because there's just little excess plastic everywhere. And then after I get them done, I will be going back to the step supports because they've got little circles molded into them that just show up on all the models for no reason at all. I'm sure there's some reason. I don't know what it is. Why there's always these circles molded in. And sometimes the circles are molded in, not, in places like this where they're at the bottom and never be seen. But they're, they're right in the middle of something. And it's happened in all the models I built, even the Savoia, which was a pretty well done model in terms of its manufacturing. I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage today because my large print chat screen isn't there. And that's become kind of a catchphrase around here. Things used to be, or I used to have, or it's used to, USEDTO, used to. But, we slur our words so we don't say used to anymore. We say used to. The O sound really has turned into a us sound a lot in at least American English. We're going to the store or today. We don't say ooh. We don't say the ooh sound much. We say which has changed the pronunciation of a lot of words. But I'm not going to rant about that today because it's not a very good rant. But I don't have my large print chat screen. And I don't know why, but I used to have a set of instructions that told me how to get it back. But it's been so long since I've needed it that I don't know where it is. Okay, I really don't know where it is. And so I haven't been able to get it back. There is a tiny little print chat screen on the main display which shows me whether I'm on camera or not, like that. Okay, like I wasn't really. Thank you, camera guy. Have to have my camera guy and my director are really not always on the job. But yeah, those instructions are somewhere around here. I don't know where. And as a result, I am not sure how to get the chat screen back. So I'm going to have to look at the tiny little print on this other display, which I would like to make bigger, but I don't know how. So one advantage of being old but having younger people around the house is that I don't have to figure out how. I just have to sometime later in the day say, oh, by the way, the chat screen isn't working. And the younger person will go, ugh, really? Didn't I show you how to fix it once? And I said, yes, but I wrote the instructions down and they're misplaced. Not misplaced, they're placed somewhere. They're placed in a place where I don't know where that place is, and so I don't have them. Probably something really dumb, like there's somewhere where I don't know where it is. There's just a little bit of a thing, like a little word, a little click-on spot link that says chat. But it's almost certainly what the issue is, but I don't know where that is, and so I can't click on it and make it appear. It was working okay Wednesday. But so today, not today. Everybody says today because, we don't say ooh anymore. Yeah, apparently in the States, nobody says like today. They're going to this, it's today. But today, I'm going to be initially filing these down so they're fairly close to the surface of the model where they're supposed to be, but not too far because I don't want scratch marks in the file. And then I'll be using this 600 grit sandpaper to file them down, and then I'll be using this 1000 grit sandpaper to polish it. And I'll be polishing all the way around the edges so that they have a consistent surface texture, because I have discovered that even slight variations in the surface texture will show up under the paint or after the paint is applied. That was a surprise the first time I saw that when I, sanded this down but didn't sand up here, and polished this but not here. And then I discovered, well, if you're polishing this with 1000 grit sandpaper, do the whole thing, because somehow or other there's going to be a variation in the surface texture, almost imperceptible until it's painted. I quit early on Wednesday because there was an appointment I needed to get to. I don't know. I think today I'll probably go until 1 o'clock, unless something comes up. You never know when things come up. They happen to happen. But I'm planning to go to full time today, just in case anybody is wondering. So Monday, the next time I'm scheduled to do streaming, ordinarily, is one of the major holidays here in the States, Labor Day. And it's the day where we're supposed to celebrate the contributions of labor to our economy and all that sort of thing. I don't know if that basically, I don't think anybody really cares about the contributions of labor much anymore. They just want the day off. I know that many of the people who actually watch this stream are not in the States, and so they're not celebrating that holiday. And I don't have any real plans for the holiday. Nothing really going on here. And so I am now currently, my current plan is to go ahead and stream as usual on Monday. Which would mean from more or less 10 until more or less 1. And yeah, one of these years we're going to change this opening kind of thing, the social media posts and whatever that talk about this going until 2, because I haven't gone until 2 for a long time. I changed the schedule unilaterally for my own convenience, so that instead of going from 10 until 2 with a break in between, because that break was always, it just always went too long, and 2 o'clock was too late in the day. One day I did it, I said, I don't know. I went down without a break, and then it got to be 1 o'clock, and it's about time to wrap up. And that worked out really well in terms of getting things done. Why there's a bump there? That's just weird. Injection molding does that. You'll just get like little lumps of plastic or something. I've had situations like on the Apollo and even on the Savoia where it was pretty obvious then when the mold was pulled away from the plastic, it wasn't cooled enough or something. I don't know, for whatever reason, but there was just this blob, this raised blob, probably half of a millimeter high, of excess plastic that just stuck on the surface. And in both cases, it was on the surface that showed. What is up with that? It was on the surface that showed, and so it all needed to be sanded down and smoothed out. So I'm going to take a brief break sometime today. Probably about, like 11 o'clock, just a real quick break. There was a chore that needed to be done here in the basement where my not studio is. This isn't, where my workbench, not studio work, but workbench is. That didn't get done, and now I am being reminded of it. So it's going to be a real brief kind of thing. It'll only be a couple of minutes, but one of those things that needs to be done that should have been done that wasn't done. If that makes any sense at all. Okay. There's a lot of these bits. Yeah, this isn't terribly taxing. It's weird. This has a little bit of an odd edge to it. So this thing that needs to be done is pretty much I just need to pour some water down a drain line to make sure that the trap in it is filled with water, because the trap is if you've ever looked at a drain, there's always this kind of a U shape. Like they go down and then there's a U shape and it comes back up again and goes out. And you say, why does it go down before it goes up? Because that trap holds water, and the water blocks the gases coming back, the sewer gases, which is a good thing because they're unpleasant. And that's the kind of thing that would have been done if I had done something, clever, like put it on a to-do list and just gotten it done. But I didn't put it on a to-do list, so it didn't get done. That's how those things go. Or in this case, how they didn't go, because it didn't get done because it wasn't on my to-do list. So what's going to happen, maybe eventually when I'm done with all of these, like I said, the next step is going to be to sand out the circles on the 6 stair support sides. The step supports, that's what they're called officially on the instructions, will be to sand the circles out because they're on the sides of the supports. And if they were on different sides of different supports, then I could put them on the inside of the steps so that they wouldn't show, but they're not. They're all on the same side, and so they would show on one side and they would not show on one side, but they would show on the other side. And I don't want them to show at all. So even though I'm not aiming for I'm not going to get real compulsive about the quality of the build of this model. It's just having those circles show is just really annoying. I mean, they just shouldn't show. So I'm going to sand them out. So the tops of these all the way around is it has a texture on it, which is kind of interesting because the cover art showed a texture. It looked like indoor-outdoor carpeting, and it actually is textured. So the future of this is that once these are all sanded down, and all the little excess little ridges of plastic along the bottom and things like that are eliminated, I'll get them in their correct location in the circle, and test fit them to see how well they fit together. And that will determine what kind of adhesive I use. I'm kind of leaning toward epoxy. It's just going to be bare plastic, and so the model cement would work. That doesn't grab right away. It depends on how they fit. If they fit really nicely together, these don't necessarily go together, but if the seams are nice like that, like this isn't all that great, they don't even line up vertically. With epoxy, I can hold them in place for just a couple minutes and then they'll hold. But with the model cement, it doesn't always work that way. It doesn't always. They have to be held in place, like taped, or I don't know how else they could be clamped. So a lot will depend on how well they fit together. If they need to be held in place because they don't fit together that well, then I'll probably use epoxy because it will set up quickly. I could use contact cement, but I'm going to, after this is put together, it's going to be manipulated a lot. It's going to be moved around so that it can be painted on the top. I'm going to paint the brown. Well, I have to prime the whole thing, and then paint it brown, and then tape the top, and then flip it over and paint the edges a dark metallic color. So it looks a little bit like the box top. I'm not going to be working as carefully to match colors as I did on some of the other models, like the Submarine or the Savoia. Well, I didn't have to work on the Savoia. I had a color chart. It said which colors to use, which was, I didn't have, all I had to do was get the right color. But I'm going to use the paints that I've got. I don't particularly want to spend more money on paints just for this, because this is kind of this is just kind of an amusing model. I wanted to do something a little less intense than the Savoia or the Apollo or the Lotus Ford. The Lotus Ford, by the way, I'll just remind everybody, is taking a break because I have to get a new decal set. Everybody's heard that story many times, so I'll just tell it again. Is the decal set that came with the model was for the 1964 car, not the 1965 car. And so it was just historically inaccurate. So there's an aftermarket decal. There's actually a lot of aftermarket modeling stuff. It's really kind of surprising, to me at least, about how many parts in model kits are not really accurate, and so there's an aftermarket of much more accurate parts for a lot of things, especially airplanes. Well, in this case, there's an aftermarket for the decals, which are historically accurate, but they were not what I expected. I expected it to be one giant decal for the side that included all of the little sponsorships and inspections and stuff, and it wasn't. It was a bunch of individual ones, and when I slid it off, they all came apart. And I couldn't recover. I'm not expecting what it was. Some of them folded up. One of them tore. I couldn't fix it, and so I needed to buy a new decal set. Fortunately, they're still being made. Unfortunately, the people who make them decided that they would be on vacation for the entire summer, and we don't take orders again until September 1st. And so next week I will order a couple of sets. I'm going to splurge. And the reason I'm going to splurge is that I'm not sure that I won't mess it up again. And get 2 sets of decals so that I just have all sorts of extras for when I mess up. I have, replacements. And I don't know how. I think they're made to order. Like they don't have a huge inventory just sitting around. And if they haven't been taking orders all summer. I'm betting there's going to be kind of a backlog of demand, so I'm not expecting the decals to show up until maybe the end of September. And then I'll go back and finish the Lotus Ford when that happens. Since I finished this, well, the Apollo was like that. That just sat around for a good long time before I finally got the stickers fabricated for the instrument panels. And I finally got the command module put together. I have decals that need to be installed on that too. And I had talked on Wednesday about maybe putting the decals on today. I don't know if I'm going to get to that or not. Eventually I will put the decals on the command module, ones that say United States and have a little flag, just so you know who it belongs to. And and then the Apollo, I found a nice box for it, and then the Apollo will be done after doing like 2.5 other models since I came close to finishing that. I talk about these things that I finished, but you don't know unless you've been watching, or you go back and catch them on YouTube to see that actually really happened. You don't know if I'm really telling the truth about having done those models or not. So one thing I could do is I could pull them out of the box and show them to you on the stream. I talked about doing that. That's another one of those things I talk about doing, but I end up not doing. So I'm not going to promise that will ever happen. If you want to find out if I ever really finished anything, you need to find the old episode on YouTube and look at it, where I go, oh, this is done. Huh, what a surprise. Now what? It's almost like that. Kind of like been working on this forever. Felt like it anyway. Now it's completed and need to move on. So of the models I've been working on, the very first one was a Fink model, a Fink Eliminator, a Big Daddy Roth model that first came out in the 60s, which I built the entire set, I think, back then. I really thought they were cool, but my mom thought they were ugly. We disagreed about that. So when they reissued them all, I don't know, like 15, 20 years ago or something, I bought the set again, fully intending to make them. And I had started one, never finished it. So I finished it, and I was told nobody cares about Big Daddy Roth Rat Fink models anymore. So I built a Renoir cutaway submarine, which was actually the kits I built. I got 3 of them because they had already been started and parts missing and stuff like that. I got 3 kits from which I was able to make one complete model, and I actually finished that. And it came out, I think it came out pretty well. There were some parts of it that came out extremely well, like the galley. And then I started the Apollo, which is now essentially done except for some decals that I just never got around to finishing. That sat around. So I can't claim that that's done yet because I have to put the decals on. The Savoia is done, the Savoia S21 Porco Rosso's plane, and that came out, I have to say, that came out really well. I had used the experience that I gained by building the Fink and the submarine and the Apollo and the Savoia S21 came out really quite nicely. And then the Lotus Ford proved to be extremely challenging because of all the chrome plating, which was stupid and in the way of making the model look right, and the historical inaccuracy of the decal set and of some of the components of the model. Like the nose I couldn't fix. I couldn't ever fix that completely. And the seat, I was able to fix the seat. I was happy about that. Because the model was wrong. So I guess I finished 3 models. And I am like almost completely done with 2. And those will get done eventually. There's just the submarine and the Apollo are too big to display anywhere. So I just got them in boxes just to keep the dust off of them. The Lotus Ford, I have a little bit of a display case, which is way up on a shelf, not really displaying anything, but it keeps the dust off, so I'll probably stick it in there when I'm done. The Savoia could go in there too. Excuse me. Well, the way, like with a lot of things, it's like if one keeps at it, eventually it gets done. Doing this makes me think about people who used to do like mosaic floors and stuff. So, you go to famous cathedrals, like the one in Venice, for example, and the whole floor is a mosaic. It's made up of these like 1 inch by 1 inch squares of stone. That's what they did. They didn't have anything they could mold ahead of time. They just had to cut stone. They had to slice it to the right thickness, and then somebody had to cut it into squares, and then it had to be polished. And that was all done with, by today's standards, with totally inadequate tools. So as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, well, this is, imagine what it'd be like if you just spent, I don't know what, 8-9 hours a day sanding down and polishing tiny little squares of stone. I could, that would be a job. So one of the, okay, I'm going to have to test the rest of these. I was just feeling this, okay, and there's like a little ridge of plastic there that's more than typical. And that would definitely interfere with these parts fitting together. It would it's just big enough. It's up high enough that it would keep the parts from, it would make a gap. So I'm going to go back over all of these. I know, you go, ugh, really? And the answer is yeah, really. And sand down these edges. Because if that ridge had been there, then there would have been a gap, and I would be complaining about why is there a gap and what am I going to do about it? And I probably, it would just be easier to just take care of it all at once. And this one has that kind of ridge on it as well. You can almost see it. Okay, but you can definitely feel it. So I could go back and do all of those now before I finish the rest. I think I'm just going to do that because doing it while I'm thinking about it. It'd just be better to just get it done instead of, saying, is this something I really need to do, and then not getting it done, and then going, oh, I should have just done that. Instead of not doing it, and yeah. Yeah, see, it's on quite a few of these. You notice that I'm using the 600 grit to get those ridges off. Then you notice that I'm not polishing it with the 1000 grit. And I don't have to here, okay, because these are the edges that will be contacting each other. They'll be like that. So they will not be seen, and in fact, slight scratch marks like this actually will help the adhesive adhere, whatever I end up using, whether that's epoxy or contact cement or the model cement. Yeah, but there's that kind of raised lip on all of these where the plastic oozed out a little bit. I'm getting the bottoms. I don't know. When I fit them together, I might still find some little bits that I missed, but I'll deal with that when I fit them together, I guess. This one has a big ridge on it. So when I was test fitting these a little while ago, and there were, and the gap between the two parts wasn't nice and uniform. It's probably because of this. I do have to talk to Alexis about putting the music back. We for our Dungeons and Dragons show, we have nice background music that was written and produced by, I think his name is Alex Nakarada. We licensed that for the use on our show. And it used to also be in the background of this stream that ended a long time ago because, just get these weird copyright dispute things. Trolls listen to the music and say, oh, no, that's my music. You need to pay royalties. And they go, no, it's not. Here's our licensing agreement. But the streaming services get all, they somehow take the side of the claimant And the people who are in the right, not the scammer. Okay, the scammer gets away with it, kind of, and it's just a real pain. So I haven't had music in the background of this for a long time, which puts pressure on me to maintain some sort of monologue, I guess, so that there's, something, some sort of sound in the background. If I could ask that the filter be taken off of the microphone, and then you could hear the sanding sound. You could hear the little rubbing noise. You can't hear that because there's a filter that filters out everything except the voice. I don't know. It somehow decides what a voice is and what isn't. On our Dungeons and Dragons show, Nines, our Tabaxi Bard, we all do character voices, okay? So we don't just, we play our characters in the show. And Nines has a high-pitched, let's just say that the DM had to take the filter off the microphone because the filtering software identified Nines' voice, the character's voice, as noise, not as a voice, and so filtered it out. Discovered that early on when we were starting to produce the show. Thought that was pretty funny because I agree, that Nines' character's voice is pretty much just noise. I don't know. I don't know if this is streaming or not. I'm guessing it is. Yeah, it says stop streaming, stop recording. That's my options. So if the option is to stop it, then the thing that it must be doing is doing it, right? Otherwise it would say start streaming, start recording. So sometime between now and the future, I'm going to have to get Alexis down here to reteach me how to restore the large print's chat screen when it disappears like it did. She'll probably come down and just click on the icon and it'll just pop right up. She'll give me that look like, what? I don't know. Didn't work when I did it. Yeah, I believe you. That's always that. Yeah, I believe you. And it's probably, she might actually believe me because sometimes for me things don't work that work for everybody else. And I don't know. I don't know why it didn't work. It didn't work for me. Yeah, almost all of these have that little ridge that I didn't catch when I did the first sanding go around. Okay, well these pile of stuff here. That's done. I've got 3 more of the circle pieces, and then the command deck, the one that Shat gets to sit in, the Kirk chair. And it's almost 11. So maybe what I'll do is I might just go ahead and try to finish all these 4 pieces, and then I'll take that real brief break that I said I needed to take to do this thing that I should have done yesterday that I didn't because I didn't put it on my to-do list. Which if I had put it on my to-do list, and if I then in fact looked at my to-do list and noticed it was there, and I actually decided to do something that was on my to-do list, if all of those conditions had been met, then it would have been done and I wouldn't need to do it now. But as it was, none of those conditions were met. And not surprisingly, that reduced the chances of it happening to practically 0, which was in reality what happened. It didn't get done. But now I'm remembering it. Hopefully I'll still remember it when I'm done with the rest of these pieces. There, these pieces here. Hopefully I'll remember that I need to do that when I'm done with those pieces, and I'll get it done. And that's why I will be taking a break. And then after the break, I will be sanding off the circles on the stair supports. And after that, I will be test fitting these parts to see how they fit. And maybe even deciding on what kind of adhesive to use to adhere them together, and I will build the circle. And then I'll have this awkward circle that would be, I'd like to have that done, because then I can paint it over the weekend. That would be nice. I'd have I'd have things sort of done. Sometimes on this stream, it's good to have, visible signs of progress. Sometimes, in reality, the invisible signs of progress are still progress. Things are still getting done, right? But it doesn't look like the model is being completed. It was like that with especially with the Lotus Ford, where I just have a whole bunch of parts that were, ready to go, but they weren't assembled, so it didn't look like a car. Now it looks like a car. Sometimes that's misleading. It looks like it's further along than it is. But So like this, for example, it looks like nothing's really getting done. I started out with a pile of parts, and I still have a pile of parts. Even though a good deal of time has been spent taking off little sprue marks and sanding down rough edges and polishing them in anticipation of application of paint. This stage of it, even though it takes a lot of time, probably, the prep work on this is going to end up taking probably like 5 times longer than the actual assembly of it. To make a model look, pretty good. I've discovered that this activity, this prep work is actually really important. Otherwise, I just scrape that off, cut that off with like a razor blade and scrape it down, and who cares, right? It would get done, but it would look like the kind of model I built when I was 9 or 10, as opposed to the kind of model I'm building when I'm ancient. I've been told I should feel lucky that I have enough eye-hand coordination to even be able to still do this, especially like the painting minis, the little detail painting, which I will be doing with this kit. This kit actually comes with little mini figures of Kirk, Spock, and Sulu. Why is there no McCoy? I do not know. Why is there no Uhura? I do not know. What I do know is that I've got Kirk, Spock, and Sulu, and that the faces of Spock and Sulu kind of look like Sulu and Spock, and the face of Kirk does not look like William Shatner. Dog is barking. You can't hear that because of the filter. Probably the construction people are showing up because they're supposed to be doing construction on this project that we've got going in the back of the house. That is a month late starting. Not terribly pleased by that, but at least it's started, which was, better than not starting at all. This is kind of a weird piece. Oh, yeah, this is the main screen deck, the center of the main screen deck. Which is the main screen. That's the one in front of the captain's chair. The captain gets to see the main screen. The large size screen, they can watch high-def movies and stuff, I guess. On screen, you get to say on screen, and that's where, like the unexpected alien life form shows up. Like the Chanya guy. The Chanya puppet. Something got one of the dogs all riled up. barking a good long time there. This is all making a mess. I'm going to have to spend some time. Actually, we'll have to spend some time cleaning this up. All the plastic dust from the sanding down of parts here. What I will probably do, since I'm going to be using this cardboard thing as kind of like the base for assembly anyway, I'll be using it to carry it upstairs to a well-ventilated place for painting, that kind of thing. So I will probably flip it over and use the other side, because this side is going to be, it's scarred up and messy. Fortunately, it's a pretty much inexhaustible supply of cardboard nowadays because of home delivery. This is a factoid from the way things used to be. If you can imagine it, there was actually a time, I don't know when it was, like in the 60s or maybe the 70s or something. Sometime in the past, between the 60s and the 80s, there was a time when the manufacturers of corrugated cardboard, this stuff, the demand for it had basically collapsed. And they were like going out of business, and people talked about the situation with corrugated cardboard. Now you can hardly go through a week without getting a couple of boxes delivered from somewhere. And it's getting close to being done. As I have said frequently, it's further along than when I started, which is not always the case on this stream. There have been times when things ended up further back than when I started. It's happened several times. It happened on the Apollo. It happened on the Savoia. It happened on the Lotus Ford, where it was like, that did not work. It has to be undone, and then a big chunk of time taken, like undoing something that went wrong, and then redoing it again, sometimes 3 times total. But yeah, I mean, it happened on the Apollo and the Lotus Ford that, like, I had to remove all the paint on a part after it had been painted, and it didn't come out well. Just remove it all, and it took like a couple of hours just to sand it off and repolish the surface and repaint it from the primer, starting right from the primer again. So there are some times, the 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing that you hear about. That has happened on this stream. That's why this is not ever portrayed as a how-to show. Sometimes it's a how not to stream. And I can be kind of entertaining and enlightening. It's like, okay, what I just did, okay, don't do that. Don't do this thing that I did, because it didn't go well. And it hasn't happened with this model yet, because I haven't really done much of anything. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does at least once. I can't predict when or how that will happen, but I can predict that there's a likelihood greater than, it is, they say, a non-zero chance that that there will be a one step back after two steps forward. In fact, it'd be like I have had, instead of two steps forward, one step back. I think with the Lotus Ford and with the Apollo, it's been more like one step forward, two steps back. Like I said, there's a non-zero chance that something similar will happen here. This is weird. There's just a discontinuity in the plastic there. Like a little divot, a ridge. Doesn't show on the top, but it's significant. I don't know if that'll end up showing on the inside. I think I'm going to try to sand it down a little more than it is now. If it's like an indentation, yeah, it's going to show up as an indentation. You can't really tell how deep it is. Pretty deep. Yeah, pretty deep right here. It might just have to stay. It might just be a flaw that will not go away. I suppose someday, it would be interesting for me to actually watch somebody who makes these models for like the box covers or for sale, kind of a professional model maker, to see, they probably won't do it, they'll just say, oh, I sanded all these parts down, not bothering to live stream the 5 hours it took them to modify the plastic parts as they came out of the box so that they were usable. I'm guessing that, if people are doing this more seriously, like for a living or something, that they've got the equivalent of power tools, little miniature sanders and things that would make this go a lot faster. Like tiny little automotive grinders and polishers, the kind of thing that auto body workers use. But I don't have those, and I'm not going to invest in one, so you all get to watch me just sand this all down by hand and talk about how much time it takes to prep the pieces so that they're presentable. Or even, in some cases, even usable. Sometimes they're that bad that they don't even work. It's coming along. I guess I can say that. It's a pile of parts. Yeah, if I had a decent director and camera guy, as I was talking about it, then the camera would go over and show you the pile of parts that are done. Let's see, as I was talking about it, all of that would just happen, but my director and camera guy are just not very good. Get the attention of my director and camera guy there. There's a pile of parts. Thank you, camera guy. Just one more. The command deck. And then I'll take the break that I need to take to do the chore that I need to do. So the command deck just sits out there right in the middle of everything. And this is all put together. I guess it does. It does attach there. Yeah, the circle. All these parts attach to each other, and the command deck actually does attach to number 7, which is the whatever number 7 is. The communications deck. The back of this attaches to the communications deck. Yeah, I'm still here if you're listening. I know at least some of the others out there, you just listen to this and you're not watching, you're just listening to it. And sometimes there's just silence because I don't have anything to rattle on about. And I think I was, kind of remembering things. When I was building the Apollo, I talked about the space race and my experience of growing up with that. When I was building the submarine, that was actually kind of fun because I got to talk about nuclear Armageddon. Really, I got to talk about what it was like growing up at a time when fallout shelters were a thing that was you could buy at the state fair. You could go there and see a full-scale mock-up of a fallout shelter, and they would sell it to you and come and dig a hole in your yard and install it. And about the demonstration of the anti-aircraft missiles and stuff. That was fun. I really liked talking about that. The pictures in the newspaper of the blast radius of a 1 megaton weapon that was dropped on the airport nearby because there was some military planes stationed there. And we'd all look at the map and try to figure out if we would be totally incinerated or just irradiated. And then when I was building the race car, which I still haven't finished, but eventually will. I was talking about my experience with going to the races, and what that was like. And talked about cars some too, just like regular cars, and how those had changed over time and gotten so much better in terms of materials. So I guess as I'm building this, I should talk about, my experience of actually, being there when the original series was the original series. I can talk about what I remember of the original series of Star Trek when it first came out. So we'll probably get around to doing that sometime. Whoa, what's going on here? There's a huge rough spot. Yeah, I was just feeling it. It's not here. It's smooth on this side, but there's a big rough spot right here. It's one of those things I was talking about, where it comes out of the mold and plastic adheres to it. This is one of them right here. A real significant flaw in the molding process there. Right there on the command deck of all places. Just really not well done there. I have to say that, that at least this plastic is fairly soft, and so stuff like this, like sanding out a problem, doesn't take forever. It might feel like it to you, as you're putting up with me just rubbing away at this. As you can tell, a lot of what goes on here in terms of prep is done by touch rather than by look. It's really very sometimes hard to see, like I couldn't see that, but I could definitely feel it. It was a raised rough spot. One of those things I talked about where it pulls out of the mold and a little bit of the plastic still adheres to it and makes a blob. That's what was here. And it's pretty much gone. And I need to polish the edges with the 1000 grit sandpaper. Okay, that's gone now. And this, just to remind everybody, is the process of making sure that the surface texture of the edges here is uniform, whether it was sanded down previously or not. If it was sanded down, this polishes out any scratch marks. If it isn't, then it provides very fine scratch marks so that the surface texture is the same. Otherwise, it will show through the paint and look not good. The technical term, yeah, not good. Yeah, there's a ridge of plastic all along the bottom on this side. I should bring somebody down sometime and have a dialogue instead of just, being dependent on me having a monologue. I need, like, guest star day. Somebody show up and just talk about whatever. It doesn't even matter what, just to fill in the silence. An anti-Simon and Garfunkel thing. The not sounds of silence, the sounds of not silence. It's like not silent sounds. I'm not sure one can probably phrase that in many different ways and be correct in all of them. They could be on camera behind me. I could move over a little bit so I'm behind the camera and they could be over there. We could do that. That would be an okay thing to do. To see if anybody's willing to do that. My guess is that it's not going to happen. It's going to be one of those things I could talk about that just isn't going to happen. But, it's a speculation about something that there's no laws of physics that prohibit it from happening that I know of. So it's something that, could happen. Okay, here, this pile of stuff, I'll just leave it like that, because why not leave it like that? So the things that I need to do next are these little bits here, and as you can maybe see, I don't know if you can or not, on this side it's smooth. Okay, on this side there's here and here are little circles, and after break I'll complain about these circles and why they keep showing up. I don't know why, but they keep showing up on the models, often in places that that mar the surface pretty significantly. So I'm going to take a break now, a half hour later, and I was planning to probably be like 5 or 10 minutes. I've got a couple of things I need to do. And then I'll be back and I'll sand out those circles. And then there should be time left, I hope, to maybe assemble the circle. We'll see. Oh, it ended. Okay, I'm back. That wasn't too long. So I've got all these parts here. Move those over. Get another piece of this out because the sandpaper I've been using is pretty much used up. I was told once ages ago, I don't know if this is true, that using a scissors to cut sandpaper is a good thing because cutting through the grit actually sharpens the blade. I think that's probably gibberish nonsense, but I thought I'd pass that on because it was something to say while I was doing that. So these are these things I'm pulling out here are the step supports that have the circles in them that need to be sanded out. I have to take these off to stay up close. This one's not too bad. It's very, very minor. So the steps themselves also have circles on them and numbers, but they're on the bottom, and they're not going to be seen. They can't be seen, and so it's just not an issue, which is fine with me. So the way I'm going to do this is make sure I've got the right side, and I'm just going to rub it in the 600 grit here like that, because I want it to stay flat. I don't want to have like it all end up being beveled. And then I'll use the 1000 grit to polish it on both sides so that, again, the texture is uniform. There. You can see the circle better now. See, as I'm sanding it down, the surface is rough here, but here it's shiny because that's the original plastic. And it's down there pretty deep. I need to sand this down until that shiny circle disappears. Otherwise, when I make the part, when I put the steps together, there will be a circle there instead of a nice smooth surface. Yeah, and it's still there. Could hardly see it before I started sanding it, but now it's pretty obvious and it's pretty deep. And that's what would happen when it was painted as well. Especially since I'm using kind of a metallic paint, is that it would hardly be visible until it was painted, and then it would be very obvious. Now these are going to be thinner, fair amount thinner than they would have been otherwise. As you can see, I'm taking a lot of plastic off. still there, but nothing to be done other than to get it done, right? Keep at it until it's finished. Yep. Yeah, pretty boring, isn't it? But it's almost gone. Almost gone. Still an edge right there. When I'm done with this, I'm going to put it up next to one of the other ones just to see how much plastic I ended up taking off. It seems like a lot. This is the annoying part, when it's like almost gone but not quite. And you go, really? Why doesn't it just disappear? And then it does, and it disappears. You know, there is no longer a circle there. I wonder, I'm just going to compare the width of the plastic. I felt like I took a lot off, but it's pretty much imperceptible. Okay, I'm going to just set that aside. I'll polish these. I'm going to do the polishing of these all at once, you know. Not all at once, but I'm going to do take the circles off of all 6 of these, and then get the finer gritted sandpaper out and polish them as the next step, rather than alternating back and forth. I mean, I could just alternate back and forth, but since I've got this out and it seems to be working. Yes, these are pretty deep in there. I thought that they are deeper than I thought they were when I first looked at them. Now that I am gritting them down. I wonder if I'm taking off my fingernails at the same time. Maybe. I don't know. Find out later when I look at my fingers. They do look a lot better without the circles, so this is the slightest little hint of that still being there. Okay, well, there. As I said about it, every time I built a model and half the parts, seriously, they have these circles that are molded in. You know, like on the bottom here, they're big ones right in the corners. And I don't understand why they're there. I could ask like ChatGPT or something. It would make up some sort of story for me, right? Why are there circles molded into the plastic parts of plastic models? It'd probably tell me something like, oh, in order to make it round, that's why there's circles. And something like that. And then it would go on to tell a story about, I don't know, I can't even imagine what it would say, but it would probably be some sort of nonsensical thing about the historical nature of injection. It might even not even know that they're injection molded. Who knows? Who knows what it would come up with? I might just ask it sometime just to find out what kind of gibberish it would generate to try to explain. Or it might be honest and say it doesn't know, but AI never does that. It never honestly admits, I'm not sure, I don't know. As commentators point out, it very confidently comes up with bullshit. And I don't mean that as a bad word, it's like a real word that they're using to describe this. The kind of stuff that it comes up with is just nonsense. Very confidently presented nonsense. For a D&D show, for our patrons, the people who sign up on patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons, patreon.com/Dyson Dungeons become patrons. They have access to our Hot Takes and Cold Reads, where we ask artificial intelligence to say something about our show. And it's done, fascinating things, like it absolutely hallucinated a new character named Hildy. It doesn't exist in our show, but in the hallucination that it created, week after week after week, it came up with an elaborate backstory, how Hildy became part of the group. Hildy actually became like the leader of the group. It got so excited about its own creation that it, celebrated its own hallucination by making Hildy a leader of the group of Midnight Brunch. And then they updated it, and Hildy disappeared, and ChatGPT denied that Hildy ever existed. I never did that. There is no such person as Hildy. So, I mean, it isn't intelligent. It doesn't really have a memory or anything. It's just a word generator. And then we ask it, to use its deep research mode or whatever it is, deep thought, to tell us about our characters. And it would come up with these huge biographies of one character or another, and it would make stuff up that fan fiction and things like that, or the appearance on an Ask Me Anything show. It just made them up as though they were real events and presented them like that. We were finding that like 2/3 of the material that it presented in response to our inquiry was a lie. Stuff that never happened. And it very confidently presented it in this massive presentation and format. It's like quasi-research paper. But it was just all nonsense. It was just all non-existent. It was just a lie. We actually became kind of disturbed the first time it did that. When we asked it to do something in its deep research mode. And we were reading it, and I was like, what is this? It would reference appearances of characters during certain very specific episodes of the show. We looked back at our notes, and it was, no, none of this happened. It talked about not just our characters, but our cast members, okay? And the things that they did. Like it said, I appeared on an Ask Me Anything podcast that never happened. And it very, very confidently described, when it was and what I said. And none of that was true. So I have to really worry about, if people are using this and then believing the kind of stuff that it spits out. I don't know what started me on that, but that's what finished it. Is like, wow. Well, this is making quite a mess anyway. If nothing else, I'm getting a lot of plastic dust everywhere. But the circles seem to be disappearing. Yay. And then I just need to sand down the two sides with the same fine grit sandpaper so that, like I said, now, for the 8th time or something? Hi, Ole. Thanks for joining in. I don't have my large print on, so look. Ah, okay, right. I saw your skates. I saw the Thanks so much, and I'll see you on Monday. I hope your daughter has a really good practice. And thanks for sending those pictures of the skates. I had no idea that skates were so complicated. See you next week. I had to get up close to the screen with my glasses on in order to read it because, as I had mentioned earlier, my large print chat screen, which was working really well, disappeared in my instructions about how to get it back, are somewhere where I don't know where they are. Which doesn't help, right? I mean, when you're looking for something and can't find it, you don't have it and then you can't use it. That's kind of how those things work. The circles on this one, the very last one, are particularly bad. The very first one was the worst. Yeah, these are kind of deep. So Ole thinks that it's like a vent or something. That it's an essential part of the injection molding process. I think that they need to think about where they put them so that model makers like me don't have to spend a whole lot of time doing this, making them disappear so that they don't show up in the finished product. Yep. Okay, well that looks okay. I can't see them anymore. This is a mess. Wow. Now I get to do this on this sandpaper. To make uniform the texture on both sides. Then I'll just dump them in the box. These need to be primed, so I'll need to get, at some point, a little piece of cardboard out and tape them down, and then spray paint the primer on, and then flip them over and spray paint the other side. And then after the primer is on, then I need to paint them with the finish color. And I don't mean like Finland finish, okay? Although it, I suppose it's possible to find spray paint in Finland, and then it could be the finish color. Maybe there is a color that's specific to Finland. That would be a finish color. Any color in Finland is in fact a finish color. But they need to be primed and then final coated, painted on both sides, because both sides show. And I know what color they're going to be. That's a helpful thing. This is going to be one of these things where these attach to the edges of the circle. And it's one of those things where the parts really all need to be put together at the same time. Because if I put the step together with the treads and the things, they might not fit into the slots where they belong. They might just be like a little too wide or a little too narrow if I put the treads on and then assembled it, because they're not, none of the fits are perfect. The alternative would be to attach these supports and then put the treads in. Attach these to the parts where they go, like this. However they go, like one way or the other. It helps to get them. No, they just don't go. It's weird. I mean, it just... I guess, I don't know, I'll have to play with them. They don't... If that's where they go, they don't go that way. But I think if I put those in, it would be like some of the parts on the Lotus Ford or even the Apollo, where you attach a couple of things to a couple of things, then they don't match up with the other things that come on later. And so the safest bet is to put them all together at once. So that they're in alignment. Otherwise they'll be out of alignment, and then it would be a mess. Trying to get them back in, especially if I use like model cement or epoxy, which was not flexible. There. So the thing to be done next, put the file away, put this away, put the sandpaper away. There's still a little bit of that left, not much. Set that aside. Put this away. Take a piece of paper towel. Kind of clean this up a little bit. Get it all over my pants. Oh, I thought I'd flip it over to the clean side. The clean side is not clean. Well, I'll just use this side anyway. It's going to be spray painted. Well, we got some barking going on. I wonder what that's about. Hopefully, I don't know if the construction people are going to show up today or not. Can never tell. Never hear ahead of time. Where did I put my mug? I lost my mug of coffee. What a pain. Okay, they need to go in this order. There's 7. This attaches to that like that. I'll even orient them the same way. This is number 17. Actually, yeah, goes there. Twenty-two is there. 20 is like, no, 20 is next to 22. I'll check all these numbers again later. 23 is way over here. Ooh, that's the elevator deck. That's cool. Good to have an elevator. 15 is the main screen deck. Right there. 11. 9. Sounds like there's a delivery or something going on. Got the dog really excited. 12. Yeah. I'll double check all these numbers. This one should go here, I'm guessing. Maybe? 13 is here. Okay, this is theoretically at least. This should make a circle. There's a bunch of chatting going on. I don't know why. All sorts of visiting. Gretchen my wife likes to chat with the delivery people. I guess there's a grocery delivery coming or something. Yeah, these gaps are not uniform. Okay? I mean, what I'd like this one here, up here that you can't see. I'm going to move this up. See? A nice straight line between the two. And some of them just aren't. I guess this protrudes. I'm looking at this one here, and they're not the same size. So if I line it up on the inside like this, there's this little gap up here. If I line it up like this, and there's a gap on the inside, and I'm thinking if I do it like that, there's this little bit of a protuberance there. I wonder. I don't really know how that's supposed to work. You know, if the parts just yeah, you look at it here, there isn't a protuberance like that, but they all line up on the inside. So I'm not sure, you know, like if I do these one at a time, okay, do these one at a time all the way around and get them to fit as well as they can. When I get to the end, you know, at the very end, is the last one going to line up or not? I just don't know. They don't. To be honest, it doesn't feel like when I get to the very end that the last one would line up just right. I mean, they're pretty close, but you know, who can tell? But they need to be attached. I think I'm going to start here. Contact cement would work pretty well, but it might not. You know, they're going to be moved around a lot. Flipped over, painted, taped, flipped over. I think I'm gonna use epoxy. Like I can get these on here like this and just hold them. I could do 2 at a time. And hope they match up at the end. The model cement would just take too long. Just too long. This way I can put the epoxy in, make sure that they're even on the top. I only need to hold them for a few minutes. I might even be able to finish it. I might be able to get it all the way around today. I don't know. If worst comes to worst, I'll just saw them apart, I guess, and go from there. I don't know any other way to do it other than to do it. I'm just getting a piece. Mix the epoxy on this. So this is where someone would say, why don't you use CA glue? And CA actually would kind of work if I could get them like in exactly the right place right away. But I've said that over and over again. I'm not that good at just getting things to being where they should be initially. And then you've got a problem. Okay. Yeah, the model cement would work. It would weld them together, but it needs to sit like overnight. Yeah, I'll just do this. So it'd be kind of cool if I could get this together and do some painting over the weekend. But as is typical with this stream, sometimes things happen, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the epoxy opening works, sometimes it doesn't. What I need is a paper towel with some isopropyl alcohol in it. This jar down here, I'm just going to open it up. It's a little bit risky doing that because there's a chance I could knock it over and spill a third of a gallon of isopropyl alcohol all over everything. I mean, as long as it doesn't dissolve it, that's not an awful thing, other than that the fumes are there. Well, yeah, I should probably, why don't I do that? I should clean these off, right? Probably got sanding dust all over them. There's a thought. Well, I hope this works. Like I said, contact cement would actually be better for this in a way, in that it would give me time to move them around if necessary, if they don't all match up at the end. This is going to be pretty solid, I think. We'll just see how it works on... See how it works. I don't know. I mean, that's all we can do is try it. They have to be assembled eventually. I only need to put it on one surface. I got way more here than I need. I don't understand that. Oh, well, yeah, actually I do. I use the I use that to open the opening on the hardener. That's why it's sticky. So I'm using this because, like I said, this is going to be manipulated. I'm going to be painting it and then taping it and turning it upside down and painting it again. It's going to be moving around a fair amount. And this will give it a good solid connection. I just stuck my finger in the epoxy. It's like I didn't need to pick it up there. I could pick it up here, right? I could have done that, but I didn't. And what I'm going to do, as I was afraid of, kind of oozed up along the top here. And it's checking to make sure that they're, at the same height here. Okay, now I need to hold these in place for like a couple minutes. I've done this before. It's kind of, it's really boring to watch. And I was attaching some pieces to something, I forget what. Or I was using epoxy and holding it. It keeps oozing around. I need to just hold this and quit playing with it. But I won't. I'm gonna quit playing with it. So I'm done. When I'm done with this, I'm going to do the next two, and then the two on the other side. And hopefully it'll come around and be a circle at the end. I mean, that's the idea, right? Is it supposed to be a circle at the end? So what have I got? Like 2 more minutes. Can you count backward from 120 slowly? 19, 18, 17. I could do that with all the time, wouldn't it? Well, they're pretty symmetric anyway. They're pretty even. I need to not mix quite as much. Wait. Hold in place. Okay, I'm going to give it 90 seconds. I'm going to have a minute and 20 seconds of silence. A minute of silence. Not a moment of silence, an entire minute. Half over, half a minute. Just give me a minute. The time is weird that way. Sometimes, a minute is like hardly any time at all, right? Other times it just feels like forever. When you're doing something like, why do I have to do that? Why didn't I remember to bring that down? I've done that in the past. It's like, that is really annoying. I need to go up the stairs, get the thing I forgot, bring it back down. And it takes 37 seconds. It was like 37 seconds, and I got some steps in. But it felt like, because it was an annoyance like that, it felt like forever. On the other hand, you can sit down and watch a baseball game or something and spend 2.5 hours of hardly moving at all, and it doesn't bother you. What can you say? Time is subjective. There you go. Okay, this should be, and it is, it's kind of like holding together. That's a good thing. It will be it will be really interesting to see what happens at the end of this. That toothpick is, we'll just break it off and kind of reuse it. I need much less of this than I had mixed initially. These are the ones that go on next. Like that. So I'll just put it on both sides of this one. So I'm mixing much less of this. We'll see if that's enough. Probably not. Probably went from having too much to way too little. And so, see what happens. The other thing about this is that it, if there's a little bit of a gap, it fills the gap, which is kind of nice too. Now this turns out to be, this will be enough. I have to keep that in mind when I do the next bit. I probably should have checked the numbers. Yeah, let me do that. I know I checked them when I put them together, but I want to be absolutely sure. This should be number 11, which it is, and this should be number 12. No, it's not 12, it's 13. 13 is correct. Number 12 should be over here, which it is. Yay. Notice I haven't stuck them together yet. By not sticking them together, it gives me less time of having to hold them before it sets, before it cures. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, those line up. This one has a little bigger gap than I would like, but this one lined up really nicely. Might not even have to hold this one if I can get it there like that. It doesn't move. This one's a little bit touchy. I just want the gap to be uniform all the way across. So I need to kind of squeeze it like this. And then this one moves a little bit. Great. Why does it keep moving? I wonder if I could put a little piece of tape on it, if that would hold it. I'm not sure. But this one needs attention. I need to hold this one for sure. how it got on the outside here. Yeah, it's getting to where it does need to be held. It's starting to set up, so if it's not quite right now, it's not going to be right. So this is the 2-minute countdown kind of thing. I'm counting down very quietly to myself. I am really curious when I get to the end of this how much the last one is not going to want to fit and how much flexibility there's going to be on the rest of it. That's just the chance I need to take, isn't it? Is this... I could have contact cemented all of these parts and just kept playing around with them, but I think, this is giving me my best opportunity to have each of them fit well together, at least until it gets to the very end. And I'm saving the anyway, yeah. So about 45 more seconds. About 20. Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, they should kind of hold together. I'm going to rotate all of this because I'm going to do this other side now. These are going to be attached here and here. That's going to require a fair amount of pressure. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge here. But if I want to get this done, I would like to just do one of these, but if I'm going to get this done anytime in the next million years, I'm going to go ahead and do both of them at once. No, they're not quite laying flat, are they? Yeah, I should be able to manage that. See how this goes. So when I get to the end, my guess is that they're just not going to line up at all. There'll be differences in, I don't know, all sorts of variation, right? Find out. This might be one of those 2 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of situations. Or maybe it'll be just fine. Hard to tell at this stage. Yeah, this stuff is interesting. It cures in about 5 minutes. It's called 5-minute epoxy. It's not it's not precise, but it's interesting in that it's extremely liquid. I mean, it's just like no grip at all, and then all of a sudden it grips as it starts to cure. This one should be 20, 22. Yeah, 22 and 12. Well, 12 goes on pretty well. Getting leakage up here. The epoxy came up a little bit too thick. See, I mean, they just slide around and then all of a sudden they don't. Got slightly sticky fingers. I'm hoping this doesn't get all over everything. But Yeah, if I'm not holding that, it just pops, right? Because they're not quite lined up right. But I gotta hold this. Right now it's the critical time. A critical time for these to be held. The last 2 minutes or so. I'm just counting down. I'm just going to be silent while I'm doing this. I think I'm going to go a little longer today just to finish the circle. You know, it'll just take a few extra, like maybe quarter after or something. I've got nothing else that I have to do. So I'll make up for maybe, you know, having been a little short on Wednesday. Yeah, this one needs to be definitely held until it's set, because this one doesn't want to hold together otherwise. So I got at least another minute to go. So the instructions tell you to assemble the steps before attaching them. But I don't know that that's the right thing to do. So I'm going to paint all the parts of the steps, and I'm going to use contact cement. And then assemble the steps in place rather than assembling them first and then attaching them. That way I can make sure that they're all lined up. And I found that to be the case. You know, if one wants things to be aligned, when there's a whole bunch of parts that have to come together, it's best to put them all together at the same time. No, my finger's going to be epoxied to the surface, right? When I try to lift it up, my fingers will be... That's happened to me before. That one's sticking. And just hold this one a little bit longer just to make sure. Okay, well, they're holding, you know, if this holds the way it is, it'll be pretty decent. At first they didn't fit at all. still wants to move a little bit. And give it another minute. Yeah, so I've got 3 pieces left. Let's see, they'll go like this and this. Yeah, they don't connect. Big gap there. Yeah, it might not be too bad when it finally comes down to it. Might be able to get them together okay. What I could do is I could mix up some epoxy while I'm waiting. I could do that with one hand. The new toothpick. I'm going to do that. Huh. Let's see what happens. What could go wrong? Quite a few things actually could go wrong. I don't know how it's getting on my hands. No. Not. I mean, it's not falling apart. It's not perfect, but it's not falling apart. These are supposed to be 17 and 7. Yep. And the last one's supposed to be 22. 23. 23. That one fits pretty nicely. They both actually do that. That's good. I mean, it's kind of nice to have them kind of fit pretty nicely. It will be easier on my fingers as I try to hold them in place. And then the keystone, the last one, it will be, and we'll just see what happens with it, right? It just needs to be just lightly held in place. And I need to get it cleaned off the top. These two, they're not perfect, but they're fitting together better than any of the others have so far. Well, that'll be close to fitting. There should be enough, yeah. I mean, there's enough flexibility in the rest of this that should come together okay. So, despite the fact that they're fitting pretty well, I still need to hold them in place because when I let up on them, they move a little bit. I don't need to be putting a lot of pressure on them, which is good. Then I won't get a hand cramp. All right. So when I'm done with this, when I get the last piece in, and that'll take a bit, that's why I'm going to go a little long, because I want to finish the circle. I'm not going to cement, I don't need to cement the command thing into the communications deck. That can be done at some point in the future, but I'll be able to prime this and paint it over the weekend. At least I'll prime it and put the brown paint on. And then on Monday, I'll tape the top of this, the brown part. I'll do it on stream. Is tape the whole top of it so that it stays brown. And then flip it over and paint the edges. The edges, the top is like indoor-outdoor carpeting over a metal frame, pretty much. Is how it looks on the box top. I have to keep remembering this was a 1960s television set. It was not. It was mainly just like cardboard and plywood and stuff. Okay, it was not like the Apollo spacecraft or the Lotus Ford model or that kind of thing. It wasn't that kind of quality work. So if this looks like plywood and paint, well, that would be authentic, wouldn't it? This has got a couple more minutes to set. And then I'll do the last one. I'll probably finish like about quarter after or something. I need to do a little bit of cleaning up maybe. I think that's not moving, so I can just let it sit there until it hardens. Until it cures enough. And then I've got one left. I'll let that set for a bit before I rotate it, and then this one needs to be done, and just it squeezes together, but there's enough give in it, enough give so that I can put it in place and then squeeze it together. And this will work out okay. It looks like it has now formed a circle, or it will when I get the last bit in place. I just messed up my cleaning cloth. Get a new one, and I'll clean this off after I squeeze it. I'm getting it on my hands from the cap, actually. Wipe this off, and then get a clean one to wipe off my fingers before doing the very last one. Yeah, it looked uneven, but it's not. Okay, I need to rotate this for this last bit to go in here, and then be held in place like that. And then I will have a circle. I'm not going to move the, I'm going to paint it over the weekend, but I'm going to leave it here so that this stuff cures completely before I start moving it. It was pretty good. I didn't put my fingers in the epoxy. Kind of a pleasant surprise that I didn't do that. I mean, I didn't grab it on the edges where the epoxy is sitting, which is something I would, that's the kind of thing I would do. There's no real, I almost did it there. Let that set for a bit before I put it in place. This thing goes where does it go? Oh, here. This will attach here eventually. Okay, well, one more piece, and then I need to hold that in place for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'll be able to what happened here? How did that so get out of focus? When did that happen? And how does it get back? Huh, I apologize for that. I didn't notice that happened. Oh, the light went out. And it went there. I have no idea. The light went out and it got totally out of focus. That was very weird. So these have to be, they're a little bit, okay, I need to hold them because the circle, well, they don't. They just need to be held. Let's just say that the circle needs to be compressed here. In order to be, held in place. So, so yeah, I need to hold these like this and give them a little bit of a compression. And this finger's got something on it. That's too bad. It's not, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. It's not too bad. It won't. Just one more thing to do for another couple minutes is more holding in place. And then there it is. There's the circle of the bridge, because the bridge is a circle. They made that very clear. So that the captain can, micromanage everything. The rest of these pieces will be, I think, easier to install because, they don't form a circle. They just go on one at a time. The steps will be a little tetchy. I'm going to paint them ahead of time. And then, like I said, I'm going to assemble them in place so that I know that they will be in alignment. I had that experience with the suspension on the Lotus Ford and with the escape tower and the Apollo, is that if you got a lot of little pieces that all need to fit together just right, you can't just put two of them together and hope the rest of them fit. That's why the contact cement worked really well, because it gave me oh geez, this opened up. Okay, I'm going to have to... Oh, and this opened up too. Okay, I'm going to have to do something with that other... This needs attention. Okay, but let me deal with this first. If I mess with that, then this one gets messed up. Yeah, that was the gap, that was the part that didn't fit. And it opened up a gap that's way too big. Just as things were going pretty well, I go, oh. And then they're not. So just a couple more minutes of this, and then this will set up, I think, and I'll be able to rotate and see if I can fix that. You can see it up in the upper part, just a little bit to the upper right, that one thing has got a big gap in it. The parts, that's the one I was holding really tight, and it came open again. Is I might need to put a little bit more epoxy in, and I need to put it like a weight on it to push it, to hold it down. I know that if I let this one go, it separates. Okay, this one here, this seam. Well, it was almost okay until it wasn't. I'm hoping I can still fix that. That there's still, I can put a little more epoxy in the gap there and close it up without breaking anything else. Okay, I think these seams are going to hold. I'm going to rotate this so I can see what I'm dealing with here. There might just have to be a gap there. It might just have to be a large gap. I don't see that that's coming. I don't see this coming together any better. Well, it can. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to clean this out a little bit. I'm going to attempt to reseal this. It's really too bad, okay, because everything else was coming together pretty well. But then this one just didn't. See, it can, if there's pressure on it, it will close and maybe hold. No! Oh, what did I crack? That was not a good sound. Okay, I'm going to put another bit of epoxy in there and then hold it. It'll be another few minutes. Another few minutes of doing things. But I know that gap can close. I'm getting impatient. I need to be careful here. I mean, I really do. If I've done this in the past, I start getting impatient with something like this, and then I make a mess of it. And I don't particularly want to make a mess of it. I mean, not particularly at all. I don't want to make a mess of this at all. I'd like to do is find a way to put pressure on this like this. And to keep it on there, there's just no way to clamp it though. I need a bob clamp head. Let me see what the problem is, that it's not exactly flat, okay? And that's where the not exactly flat is coming together. So I'm going to hold it like this. This will close the gap, and then I'll deal with the lack of flatness some other time. But this, okay, so that gap is nicely closed. That looks pretty good. But something to do for another 5 minutes, right? Yay. But I'd rather have this be a little bit like not laying flat, because that's not going to show very much. But this gap, if this gap stays here like this, it is going to show pretty badly. So what I can do, since it's not laying flat, is see what I mean? Okay. It's not laying flat, but if I put like a shim underneath it, there, yeah. So the two sides are a little higher than the center, but this way it won't be a tension pulling it apart. What I want is to overkill it and have a little bit of a compression on there like that. There we go. Okay. So there's two on this side and one on the other. So it's definitely not laying flat, but the compression on here, okay, will keep it from pulling apart. And then it will look, then the rest, this will all look okay. I mean, there's some, little bits of unevenness, but again, it's every bit as good as the plywood and paint of the original set. So I did go a little bit long today. That's okay. I wanted to get this done so that I can paint it over the weekend. I'm going to prime this whole thing and then paint it brown, the color of the indoor-outdoor carpeting. I'll do the same with this. And the treads on the carpet. Pull these out so I don't forget them. That all gets primed and painted brown. The side pieces get primed and painted gunmetal. And then if everything goes okay, it's a lot of spray painting, and it's like primer, wait for it to dry, coat, probably put a second coat on. It'll take the weekend, giving the opportunity for things to dry in between coats. I think I'm actually going to take the time to mask the tops of the treads and paint the bottoms the same gunmetal. That the edges, it's a dark gunmetal that'll be painted around the edges. Okay, well, this seems to be working. It's not coming apart. Like I said, this whole thing isn't laying flat, but that's not as big a deal as having a big gap here. Okay, I'm going to clean up the work surface and then come back to make sure that that's holding, sort of holding. I'll check it again before I wrap up, but I've got a whole bunch of like epoxy and tissues and stuff laying here. I need to get out of the way before it jumps onto something and makes a mess. Quit fell asleep while I was there. It's a weird falling asleep. It doesn't really fall asleep, does it? Feet don't sleep. Okay, well, here was the thing. I'm just going to leave the tape on there. It's not hurting anything. And everything else, yeah, that didn't set well, but who cares about that anymore? Give this a wipe down. All right, so this is better than it was. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. The compression, yeah, it's not going to get any tighter than that, really. But that gap is, not much different than some of the others compared to the 3 times as wide as this that it was just a while ago. And hopefully it won't separate while the cement is curing. Yeah, everything's getting fuddle-duddled here. That's a word I just made up. Leave things alone when it's okay. I always do that. Always do that. Is when things are pretty much okay, I just keep playing with it, and sometimes it's counterproductive. All right, so there's the bridge. Yeah, the focus came back. I'm not sure what happened to it before. There's the circle of the bridge. Okay, this bit. These parts are all prepped and they're ready to be primed and painted, and I'm going to do that over the weekend as much as I can, and then on Monday I'll probably assemble the steps, no, I'm not. I have to tape over all the brown so that I can flip it over and paint the gunmetal on the bottoms and the edges. And then on Monday I'll just do the taping. That's not going to take too long. And then why not do the command station assembly? I'll get these pieces out and prep them and get them ready to be primed and painted. These will be painted kind of a pearlescent white for the most part. And then these panels, we'll start pulling out these panels. They all need to be painted different colors. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. It might go fairly quickly. I'm not sure. It depends on how fancy I get with the painting, I think. There's a lot of decals. A lot of decals go on to these panels to make them look like they're showing stuff. But in the meantime, overnight this is going to cure, and then on Saturday I'll prime it, and then maybe Sunday I'll paint it. The base color, the actual color that it's supposed to be when it's painted. Yeah, well, I went an hour, almost a half hour too long today. Made up for some of the time I missed on Wednesday. And I'll be back on Monday continuing to work on this and maybe putting the decals on the command module of the Apollo. Maybe, maybe not. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.